For the next speaker, I would like to invite Haras Rafiq, a counter-extremism and counter-terrorism expert. We had the privilege to collaborating with Haras on a few different educational initiatives and work. I would like to thank you for being with us today, coming from London if I'm not wrong. Haras, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sasha. And first of all, I'd like to greet you, salam and shalom and peace to everybody that's on this call and to the wider worldwide in humanity in general. Thank you, Cam, for organizing this event. And it's an honor and a privilege for me to be here with some old friends and to make some new friends. Those of us that have been doing this work now for about 18, 19 years, and I'm sorry, you and I have collaborated on a number of things and some other people as well. So we've seen this current incarnation time and time again. This burning of books, this provocation of a particular group of people. In this case, it happens to be Muslims, and also with the threat to burn the Torah, it happens to be the Jewish community as well. And we really need to be consistent in our response. And consistent, and it's very important that we're consistent in our response as well, because if we aren't, we really can undermine the values of a liberal secular democracy. Where I live in the UK. Sweden itself is a liberal secular democracy where there is a clear separation between church and state. I, as a Muslim, find the burning of a Quran deeply hurtful and deeply offensive. I, as a Muslim, also find the burning of the Torah and other holy books, whichever religion they may come from, deeply offensive and hurtful and sometimes angry as well. But the problem here is that not every single person that lives in a liberal secular democracy may regard the books, the Quran, the Torah, the text that I consider to be holy. And this is very, very important because we are defending the rights or the very core fundamentals and beliefs of a liberal secular democracy. We have to take that into consideration. As an aside, for a Muslim or for the majority of the schools of jurisprudence in Islam, burning the Quran is actually, or pages of the Quran is actually an accepted form of actually disposing of a pages or the Quran that may be desecrated or damaged in some way, as are burying it, as are putting it in a river and many other ways. So the actual burning of a Quran should not really be that offensive to me as a Muslim, and yet it is. Why? So what, I myself have actually burnt pages of the Quran where I've seen things or text which have been desecrated and thought, I'll burn it. I don't want to throw it away. That's disrespectful. It might end up in a rubbish tip. I'll burn it. So why have I found this offensive? Why do I keep finding this offensive? This is not the first time it has happened, and it's not going to be the last time. Well, the reason is that there's more to it. There's really an intention here to incitement of hatred, attention seeking, narcissism, social media clicks, and many, many other things that are actually in play. So should we ban it? Should we, people that live in a liberal secular democracy, call for the banning of people who would burn books? Well, we said they're making a statement. And yes, there are laws in Sweden and many parts of Europe as well that actually says that anybody who is committing an act where there is incitement to hatred based on religion and many other things, ethnicity, gender, etc., is actually a criminal offense. But in this instance, burning a book doesn't qualify because you're not actually, these people aren't committing an act against an individual. So maybe the law needs to be looked at. Maybe it needs to be expanded. Maybe it needs to be developed. But more than that, I think it's very important that we don't call for the banning of these kind of things. We don't call for the banning of any books, even though I deplore it, I detest it. When we talked about the history, I think it was, I mentioned before, Heinrich Heine, the poet in 1820, basically said when they burn books, they will ultimately burn people. Well, we've seen that in the past. And yes, this can happen again. But it's not a criminal act, nor should it be a criminal act. Europe has a history of ridiculing, critiquing, offending religions. Just look at the Monty Python films for the people in the 80s. I remember as a kid going and sneaking in and going and watching these films, and I found it very funny. It was only older, but when I got older, when I realized, actually this is quite offensive, and as a believer, I shouldn't really have found it as funny as I did. But this happens, and I could quote many, many other examples as well. So what should we do? Well, I said it shouldn't be a criminal act. People shouldn't be prosecuted rather. It's a political, social statement that is defended under the very principles of a liberal secular democracy. The same principles, by the way, that allow me, as a Muslim, to go and practice Islam the way I want to, as long as I'm not hurting or harming anybody else and breaking the law. We don't want blasphemy through the back door. What I really like about this event is something that hasn't happened in my 18 years of sort of being in the counterterrorism and counter-extremism field. And running Quilliam, I was CEO of an organization called Quilliam for about 7 years, and now I'm a director, trustee with Liz of Muslims Against Antisemitism. What we should do is we should gather together as members of civil society, both in Europe and around the world, and say we reject this, we condemn this, and we will actually oppose this in the manner we're doing today, in the manner that we will oppose other forms of fascism, be it either in a ideological way, whether it's actually protesting ourselves. I mean, I'm not a big fan of protests these days, but that's an option available. Collaboration and civil society saying that enough is enough and we're not going to take this anymore is the only way to actually stop people carrying out these attacks. And just as Anila said earlier on, it's very, very important that we starve these people of the very oxygen of publicity that they're looking for. And I'll stop there.